Well, the world still waits for peace between Russia and Ukraine following Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin's meeting in Alaska on Friday. Trump says the ball is now in Volodymyr Zelensky's court to get a deal done. Here he was on Fox News after the meeting.
We agreed on a lot of points. I mean, a lot of points we're agreed on. But there's not that much. There's, one or two pretty significant items, but I think they can be reached. Now it's really up to President Zelensky to get it done. And I would also say the European nations, they have to get involved a little bit.
The Ukrainian leader will be flying over to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Zelensky is arguing that Russia's refusal to have a ceasefire is complicating the deal, but Trump wants to go straight to a permanent peace agreement. Well, Kel, I'll start with you, and I really feel as though this appears to be a win for Putin. So where to from here, and how can Zelensky possibly have peaceful discussions while there's still war going on in his country?
Look, not just you, everyone is saying it's a win for Putin. I just think it's too early. I think it's a good idea to suspend judgment at this point because we don't know what was discussed and we don't know what... In fact, the meeting went shorter than it was expected to, only went for 3 hours and they went to lunch. It seems to me that what Trump is doing is he really wants to stop people dying. He is serious about that. And I think he's run into what's going to be the problem. I think he understands it better than he's understood it before. He's going to push Zelensky and Putin to meet. Putin doesn't want to, but Trump is going to push for that and might succeed. I know Putin is safe. Nothing can happen to him. His position is secure. There's no problem. But America is still the most powerful country in the world. If they start doing sanctions, if he starts saying we're going to really equip Ukraine and we're going to sign a defence agreement with Ukraine, then if he starts talking about that kind of thing, the ground does shift. I think Trump is now playing a more realistic game, and I just think it's too soon. We don't know where it's going to go. I keep thinking of Fawlty Towers and Manuel's answer to Basil Fawlty about something. Will it get anywhere? Possibly, eventually.
Eventually. I think Trump has been absolutely owned by Putin. I think he's been just walked around the block, tarred and feathered. He looks like a fool. He went into this meeting saying that he'd get a ceasefire. He got absolutely nothing. They ceded every single power play to Putin. I think they're probably too stupid to realise they were doing it. But Putin not only gets an intimate 101 chat in the back of the Cadillac One without any aides who would otherwise be able to run interference and protect Trump. He gets in Trump's ear, starts pissing in it, quite frankly. He then speaks first, even though the meeting is on American soil, which is a great insult. But again, did anyone know this? Well, no, because they don't know what the protocols are. He speaks longer. So it's Putin who actually gets to get up and say, yep, just met with the president, we're not doing anything he says. And then Trump has to get up afterwards. He looks like he's been dragged backwards through a hedge. He looks crestfallen. He looks weak. He has to admit there's been no deal, despite the fact that he was talking up a deal and maybe Putin even sort of dangled the prospect in front of him or just stayed quiet while Trump just mouthed off on Truth Social. Then Putin says to him in English, how about next time you come to Moscow, which is just flipping him the bird. Trump is taken aback by that, doesn't get it. And the icing on the cake is that not only did he not get a ceasefire, the Russians were bombing Ukraine while the talks were taking place. They didn't even stop for that 3-hour window, which would have been a sign of even the most modicum, tiny little granule of respect. So Putin has just basically bent Trump over the barrel and done what you do to people in that position. And it's embarrassing. And Trump is now trying to sort of pretend that this is all sort of part of the plan. He was great on Iran. He was great on Israel. But Israel owes its life to America. Russia doesn't. Iran can be bombed and can't fight back. Russia can't. So Putin, Trump talks about having hands to play. Putin has got all the cards and Trump has been exposed as having absolutely nothing, and it is really embarrassing. And unless Donald Trump grows a pair of balls and actually stands up to this guy instead of trying to kiss his ass, then the war is going to go on and on and on and on and on, and Russia will just eat bits of Ukraine a bit at a time, just like it did with Crimea, and no one is going to be able to stop it because the supposedly most powerful man in the world has just shown us his weak as piss.
Yeah, Darren, I mean, Joe
What he
makes
said.
a good point there. Yeah, exactly. Joe is spot on there. There's not often a lot of
So
times
thank you
we
very
agree
much,
with
everybody.
Joe, so we're off
Mark
to a
the
good
date.
start tonight, Joe.
August the 16th.
But to Joe's point, Putin has made it very clear that he has that desire to take over the entire Donbass region, which would leave Ukraine potentially exposed to future conflict and future invasions by Russia. Trump has said that he wants a deal, but this is going to make a deal very hard to pull off when we're looking at taking over aspects of crucial parts of land for Ukraine.
Well, Ukraine has said that they don't want to cede land. And really, any reasonable person, particularly from the distance that we are, would agree with them. Why should they? And Trump has tried to kind of walk this little happy dance with Putin. And Putin, part of the reason the meeting only went for 3 hours, said, Vlad, what are you going to give me? He said, nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And so poor old Zelensky now has to front up at the White House or wherever else. I think what he's going to have to do is get NATO, now that you've got 5%, all of the NATO nations have agreed to put 5% of GDP into their defence spending, you're going to have to see NATO muscle up to Putin. And this is what no one wanted to happen, but given Putin's sort of intransigence, that's what's going to have to happen.
But what if they turn around
Trump
and say,
won't lead it, someone else in Europe has to.
What if this point Trump says, OK, we're not going to get any deal with him, therefore Ukraine joins NATO, and suddenly Russia finds itself at war with NATO? I mean, in the end, if Trump sees it's that big, he might make that big a call.
Maybe. In a way, I hope he does.
And Louise, I'll get your thoughts as well, because Trump he's changed his tune a little bit towards Ukraine in terms of his previous meeting that we saw with Vladimir Zelensky, in terms of telling European leaders that he is open to security guarantees in Ukraine by the US. What do you make of this shift in his attitude?
Well, in February, of course, he said to Zelensky, we're no longer going to be this continuous ATM. We can't expect us to be funding everything for you all the time. And it was a very acrimonious meeting, as we know. The optics were very bad for both of them, I feel, in a way. And I've felt very sorry for Zelensky that he was sort of shoveled up and thrown out the door, in a way. So Trump is now saying that he might offer security guarantees, but it'll all be on his terms and probably won't involve NATO to an extent. So, I do agree with what Joe's saying, but at the same time, at least Trump, I think he's trying to do something. He's trying to move the chess pieces around. When you think of someone like Biden or Macron, who did absolutely nothing around the safety of that area. So, to Kel's point, what happens down the line will be very interesting to see, I think.
But hasn't he just allowed Putin back in? He's been isolated for quite some time, but he's now given him the main stage to play on, which seems like a pretty poor decision, given that nothing came out of it.
It would be as though we were invaded by Indonesia, and then Trump came in and said, all right, guys, I've got a deal for you. Just give them Western Australia, and then that's it. Imagine how Australia
That's not
would
what
feel.
happened. That's not what happened. What happened was he actually allowed Putin to come to American territory, and he talked to him, and everyone's saying it looks good for Putin because he did all the things that you talked about.
But he has said that territory will change hands.
This is one
He said that territory will
conference.
need to change hands
We
for
don't
peace.
know. This is one conference. He hasn't lost territory. If he's lost anything, he's lost one conference. But how far has Trump moved?
Ukraine has lost territory.
So let's
Ukraine has lost territory to Russia.
Yes.
And Trump is saying that in order to get a ceasefire, Ukraine will have to cede that territory. Donald Trump has said that
You don't know
publicly.
what he's saying.
I do know what he's saying because he said it publicly.
No, he's not. He
did say it publicly. He said the territory will have to change hands.
Yeah, and
that's exactly what he said.
But also, Zelensky has talked about that possibility. It's not something they've said no to. They've said that may well happen. In the east of their country, they've had provinces which is mainly Russian-speaking and are full of Russians who do nothing but rebel against Kiev. So if they lose those people, that's not a big loss for them. Zelensky's acknowledging that. That's not a big problem. The problem is, how do you stop the fighting in general and people dying? And I think Trump now realises how big the wall is, and so he's moved. I think that's the significant thing.
Do you, or is the question, do you say to a country, if you invade a much smaller neighbouring country and kill as many people as you can, you basically get what you want?
But the problem with that is Putin has said Ukraine is first. He's also looking at a lot of. He's looking at Poland of all places.
Yeah.
He's looking at a number of other Eastern European countries.
Let's give him
so
that too.
they can't just say that. They need to work out a way to deal with this. And Biden did nothing, and Trump is actually trying to engage and work out where the real boundaries are, what he really has to do.
So he invades Crimea. He gets that. Invades Donbass and the other.
That wasn't in Trump's time. No Western country complained about Crimea. Not one of them.
Because they thought that would be. Because just like now, they thought that would be the end. Give him that. Yeah. Okay, it's majority Russian speaking, just like say, let him have Crimea. It's probably a bit more Russian anyway, and then Putin will stop. And what did he do? He thought, oh, wow, I got away with Crimea. I'm going to go back for more. And he doubled down. And if we give him that, he will double down again. I mean, talk about doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
I don't know. They are doing the same thing over and over. I think Trump has shifted. The reason he cut the meeting short because he could see the ground he was on wasn't working.
Yeah,
he needed to move to some different territory. I think my own guess is Trump's worked out he needs to move to a much tougher territory. I think he's in a different position now. I think in the end, that's what I'm saying. It's too soon.
Because he's admitted that where he was a mistake, though. That's the whole point. He realised that trying to appease Putin was like trying to appease Hitler, and in the only way, the only language that this strong man understands is actually standing up to him. And he has toughened his language. He was not even remotely considering the prospect of having US or Western forces in Ukraine as a bulwark against Russian invasion. He's now openly considering that.
That's right. So this is not over.
He's gone from saying, here, we'll give you some territory, to actually know we're going to send forces here to defend Ukrainian territory. Yeah, now, that's as big as a backflip as you get.
The idea that one meeting in Alaska was a disaster, therefore it's all over and Ukraine will fall is just too soon.
No, but he's reversed his position because it was a disaster. That's the whole point. He's realised he was completely on the wrong track.
No, it's not over. It's not over. This is the middle of the book, not the last chapter.
I agree. Don't you think he was building leverage for the meeting that they do want, which is Trump, Zelensky and Putin together? I think that's the ultimate goal.
Why would you have yourself humiliated on a global stage? Why would you go into a meeting, say, we're hoping for a ceasefire, and then come out, let the Russian guy speak first, so he's the one who gets to say that you've failed. You don't even get to tell the world yourself that you've failed. He comes out and says that you failed on your home territory after getting a cosy ride in the back seat of Cadillac One. I mean, that is the biggest pantsing of a US president
not over.
in history.
It's not over. Trump is still
the only way it won't be over is because Trump has now backflipped or gone over more to the Ukrainian side, which is where he should have been all along. So he's just done a lap of the pool table with his pants around his ankles, and now he's finally put on his big boy trousers and he's doing what he should have done in the first place. That doesn't mean that what happened in Russia was some kind of victory or all part of a cunning plan. What is happening now is a result of that being an absolute bin fire. Anyway.
All right, well, let's see what happens when Trump meets with Zelensky tomorrow in Washington, D.C.